I was trying to decide how I want to go about making these videos, and I feel like I need to give context to why I'm in a wheelchair exactly, which means I need to explain my condition. But there's so many intricacies that I can't just fit it all into one video. So someone suggested that I do it in kind of like a mini series, where this video is going to focus on like from the time I was born to my amputation. And then I can work my way up to my current situation by kind of just addressing my main events. If that sounds interesting or you want to kind of know what I've gone through, then please keep watching. Disclaimer, everything I'm going to say about my disorder is only true for me. It's entirely different for everybody else that has it. It develops in completely unique ways, so I'm only speaking on my behalf. With that being said, let's get started. We immediately knew something was wrong when I was born because my right leg was bigger than my left. I had my first CT scan done at 4 days old, and within the next year or so, I would be diagnosed with a condition called Klippel-Trenaunay-Weber syndrome. The way this is diagnosed is they look for 3 identifiers, which are hypertrophy, vascular malformations, and port wine stains. What are those? Good question. Hypertrophy means an excess growth of disorganized tissue. Similar to a tumor, meaning it's like something that shouldn't be there, but also not a tumor because it's not like a solid mass. It's very much so disorganized tissue that kind of just intertwines with its surroundings. Vascular malformations, or AVMs, arterial vascular malformations, are huge deformed blood vessels within this disorganized tissue. And finally, port wine stain, which is simply put a birthmark. Usually they're reddish purplish in tone, hence the name wine stain. But this is the only reason that I have kind of a loose diagnosis or a mosaic case of KTW, because I don't fit this exact parameter. I don't have the typical port wine stain. I have a variation of it, which instead of being like one big birthmark, for me looks like a cluster of freckles and moles on the affected area. So my torso, no, I'm not gonna show you. What this means for me is that the right side of my body grows this excess vascular tissue. It took over my right leg and it grows up against the right side of my spine. So I'm currently outside because my mommy's using the kitchen. But when I was editing, I realized that it could be misconstrued as a progressive condition, and it's not. It grows as I grow, so when I would go through specific growth spurts, like a toddler or whatever, it would progress with me as well, and that's when it got to the point where my heart couldn't keep up with it. It doesn't affect my entire right side. It only affects my leg and part of my torso, but everywhere else on the right side of my body is completely normal tissue. At 1.5 years, one of these vascular malformations ended up bleeding into my spinal cord, which caused me to be partially paralyzed at T7, T8. So I'm not fully paralyzed, but I do have limited mobility of my leg. Singular. I'm getting there, okay? I'm getting ahead of myself. The first 3 years of my life were pretty rough. I was constantly in and out of the hospital. I was having so many bleeding episodes because of these vascular malformations that I ended up being incredibly anemic, to the point where I needed blood transfusions every other week. I like to give the analogy that my body thought I was running a marathon because my heart was working so hard to support this deformity that the rest of my body was becoming malnourished. My hair was constantly damp the first 3 years of my life because of how hard my heart was working. I was constantly sweating. Because if your body thinks you're running a marathon for 3 years, your heart starts to give out. And I was going into slight heart failure at 3 years old, and the only way to save my life was to amputate the bulk of the mass, which then was on my right leg. My dad likes to joke that the amputation was immediately a success because that was the first time he saw my hair dry. And in his words,
"That was when I knew you had frizzy hair."
Thanks, Dad. I made a complete 180. I was basically on death's doorstep to 3 days after an amputation, begging to sneak me out of a hospital to go rollerblading. Like, I was finally the kid I wanted to be. And that's kind of the first section of my story. So in the next videos to come, I want to talk about what it's like going to school in a wheelchair and all that has to come with that, and accommodations and interacting with kids, and like what I thought of myself as a kid in a wheelchair. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you have any questions for me, please leave them in the comments and I will try to address them in future videos. But yeah, I feel like I need some kind of like sign off. Don't forget to love yourself, and I will see you very soon. Bye.